Good Wednesday morning, everyone. Skylar Callan here on Between the Ears, and West Virginia men's basketball season has finally come to an end. Thank gosh. It has been one of the hardest, most grueling basketball seasons I've ever covered, and that includes the Charlotte Hornets, which I've covered for now 3 years. The first year was pretty good. These last two have been miserable, but this year's West Virginia team was hard to watch. It was one thing after another, as we've already talked about several times on here. And the 9-23 record, I don't think indicates the type of job that Josh Eilert did for the circumstances that he was thrown into. And I don't think a lot of fans really appreciate what he was able to do, even though it wasn't much in terms of the win-loss column, but he never complained. I mean, I don't remember watching a press conference and him talking about, Jesse Edwards missing a month or, Raekwon Battle and Noah Farrakhan not being eligible. Yeah, he may have talked about how they're going to go without Jesse or how they, are pushing for Raekwon and Noah to get eligible. But he didn't use those as excuses. He didn't use the fact that a Cook, went down in that exhibition game. He didn't use the excuse that Kirk Kriisa got suspended for 9 games for something that he did at another institution. He just continued to plug along and said, this is the pieces that I get to play with for right now, and this is how we're going to roll. And I respect that. This was a very difficult situation that he walked into last June or July, whatever it was, and he just kept his head down. And that, to me, is one of the most impressive things about Josh is, again, that he just didn't complain. He took whatever it was and just rolled with it. Unfortunately, because of the record, it's probably not going to help him in his chances to become the full-time head coach. And I think that was probably going to be the case anyway. I think he was going to actually have to, do something remarkable in terms of the win-loss record, getting, maybe a little bit of a run in the Big 12 tournament, or if they found a way to make the NCAA tournament, making a run there, that would have really kind of almost forced Wren Baker's hands. But when you're 9-23, again, I don't really blame Josh for that record, but it's hard to prop one up to get the job after that. It's just the optics, right? You want to feel good moving forward. And it's not to say you can't feel good with Josh, but the comfortability with someone like a Darian DeVry or a Pat Kelsey or a Dusty May or a Mark Byington, you're going to feel a little bit better about that moving forward because there's certainty behind it. There's years of experience in terms of being a head coach and having success. Those guys have proven that already. Josh really was thrown into a pretty crap situation, and the results were what you expected them to be. So it's still kind of an uncertainty. That's not to say Josh can't be a great head coach or a good head coach, but we don't know that. You throw anybody into that situation that Josh had this year, and they're not succeeding. You even put Bob Huggins in that same situation. Because of his experience, I'd give him a couple more wins. But they're not winning, 18, 19 games. That's just not happening. When you have all these injuries, eligibility issues, suspensions, it's not going to happen. So in terms of Josh getting a chance for the actual head coaching job, I'd say it's slim to none. And more than likely, Slim walked out the door. But I do think, however, and this is mainly the reason why we're talking about this today, or the question or my point, I guess, for this episode. When and if Wren Baker hires a new head coach, should Josh Eilert be a part of that coach's staff? And earlier in the season, I would have said no, and I think I actually did say no. And I've thought on it, And I actually think it makes more sense to keep Josh Eilert, believe it or not. Here's why. First of all, there is no power struggle whatsoever. Okay. You have, I would say, a handful of guys that you feel pretty good about them being here next year. You got, you had six seniors walk. Three of them, I believe, are, totally gone. Regardless, you have a couple that are in limbo. You have, Quinn Slazinski, who's got a chance maybe to get an extra year. And then you have, the Josiah Harrises and Seth Wilsons and Kobe Johnsons of the world who have eligibility left. You would expect them to come back. Ofri Neve, and then Aiden Tagalo and Elsa. Like, what's his situation moving forward? Is he going back to just being a football only guy, or is he going to remain a two-sport athlete? There's a lot of questions about this roster. And to me, that's really one of the issues that I probably would have had if you have, 7, 8, 9 guys coming back from this year's team next year. And even with a new head coach, if those guys were to come back, you would have a little bit of a power struggle and it would probably curb that progress initially because some guys may listen to Josh more. Some guys may listen to the new coach more. And you don't want to have that. But when there's so much uncertainty and probably a lot of turnover expected, I think it's irrelevant. I don't really think you're going to have that. And Josh is the type of guy, anyways, that if he probably starts to notice something like that happening or transpiring, he's going to go and take care of that himself and say, no, you need to listen to what he's saying. Don't come complaining to me about stuff. And Josh will do what he needs to do in his role, whatever that may be. And I think the players would have full respect of Josh. And if Josh were to fully cooperate and work with a new head coach, then I think everyone's on the same page. Secondly, you have an opportunity. If you're a head coach from the outside, you have an opportunity to keep somebody that has been a part of this program for the better part of a decade and a half. How many different places do you have that opportunity? It's got to be rare. And not only has Josh been here for 16, 17 years, but he's been a part of this program in just about every role imaginable. And B, he's been here through a lot of success. We're talking getting to the Final Four, winning a Big East championship, 3 straight appearances in the Big 12 championship, multiple Sweet 16 appearances. He understands what it takes to win here. He can be kind of that guide for the new coach. Again, it's got to fit. It's got to make sense for the new coach. And if he wants to bring his own staff, that's good and fine. But if there's a spot open, and it doesn't have to be necessarily as an assistant, maybe Josh can, I don't even know, serve somehow as a liaison of sorts, or I don't know what Josh is really open to. Whether it's kind of like the advisor role, or maybe it's some sort of role as a recruiting director or a program director of basketball ops, kind of like how Drew Fabianich is the GM for WB football. Maybe they kind of put him in that role. I really don't know. I'm just throwing a bunch of stuff out there. And again, who knows what Josh is open to do to stay here. I know he wants to be a head coach, but I highly doubt that opportunity is going to come up for him again this offseason. So, and that's not just here. So I think if Josh is open to staying and the new coach is open to keeping Eilert in some capacity, it makes 100% sense because he can lean on Josh in just about every area of the job. Not only has he worked his way up from the very bottom and worked in every single role imaginable, like I've said. But he's now also sat in that head coach's chair, albeit for a year. He has that experience, and that new coach can draw back on that. So I think it makes 100% sense to do it, but it has to fit. And if it doesn't, there's no need to force it. There's no need for Wren Baker to go to the new potential head coach and say, hey, you can bring your guys, but we've got to find a way to keep Josh Eilert here. As great of a guy as Josh is, as stand-up of a guy as he is, as first class of a guy he is, you just can't simply do that. That's bad business. You can't hire somebody and say, hey, we're going to hire you. You can do all you want, but you also got to make sure we keep this guy. Trust me, I've seen it firsthand with the Carolina Panthers twice. You can't do it. It doesn't work. So you've got to give the coach the freedom. And if that means keeping Eilert and he's open to it, do it. I don't think there should be any reservations. For Josh, I think he would love to stay in West Virginia. If it's in a role other than being the head coach, I don't know, but I would assume he would still be really open to it, considering how long he's been here. And this is kind of his home. But he has to also make the best decision for him as well. And that's bad business too. If he's just saying, I'm just going to stay here, or banking on the new coach accepting him on this new staff, he's got to go out there and look for opportunities as well. So I don't really know what direction this is all going to go in. This is all very, very early stages. I don't expect this coaching search to take long, but it is really just getting started. And from everything I've heard, and I don't know, there's a lot of conflicting things out there. I haven't seen anything, but I've been told a lot by other people that there's been reports that they've had that Wren Baker's had contact with other candidates. That's not what I've been hearing. That's what I've been told others are reporting or talking about. What I've heard is Wren Baker is pretty much not done a thing in terms of actually communicating with agents and talking to coaches about the job. That's not happened yet. That's going to happen now that the season's over. And as I said way back at the beginning of the year, I think it was still non-conference play, that Wren was going to do that. He was going to let Josh go throughout the end of the season. And when the season ended, that's when they would open up the search. That's only fair to Josh. That's part of the reason why I didn't start talking about it. I didn't unleash my opinion on this thing until yesterday, until the game ended. It's not fair to Josh. So all these lists and all these reports and all this stuff that was coming out beforehand, I don't know how much you could pour into that. Because, again, from what I've heard, is nothing has really formulated until now. So I think all that is just a bunch of opinions, bunch of wish lists, all that stuff. It's nothing, in my opinion, that's worth taking very seriously. Now, the list that I put out yesterday, again, that's not a reported list. That's not who they've contacted. That's not a list of who I think is going to get the job in order of likelihood. That's not it at all. That's my list, the list that I've kind of held on to for the entire season. So as soon as we hear something, we will report it on Mountaineers Now. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube. At Mountaineers Now, give us a like to help us with our algorithm and our power and our SEO on YouTube, or whatever the heck it is that they do at YouTube. I really don't know, but give us a like there, and also a follow on X at that same handle. And we'll be back tomorrow for another episode of Between the Eers. Take care.